Again in studio, it is very important also to track bugs. Of course, also bigger 50 company in world also having bugs and are bugs. So it's very important just to build pure organization, also the World Health Organization, but also simple forms of design. That is in fact very, very important also for all the magazines, but also for other people to see purity. Purity is very important. Also on the simple image forum, there are different forms of licensed image in world, but also together with nature and building better photo service. Of course, on the web, you can see a lot of ad or extreme bugs or even bugs ads about disease, which is of course 100% fiction. But of course, it's not easy to understand extreme modern forums and extreme scientists that want to invent some new disease. To understand simple forums of 18th century where industry is actually much healthier together with the stock of photo, you can actually build a solid foundation together with photography. Of course, modeling might be also important together with different forms of USA photo agencies, but also, of course, EU simple standards or fonts together with the image. To understand COB is also important if you are actually in banker book world, but of course, image might build a better forum together with the family of the world. Of course, that's the picture of the Africa, if that is family. To understand different forms of very rich forums together with monetary policy about the picture me present, it's not easy because it actually also present different forms of the agents. Agents are very different in United States of America, but also in UK, they are extremely difficult sometimes. And of course, People United could not build anything and actually build revenge about each other and who is actually better. To build different forms of contributions is very important, but also the benefits for the family and the most poor in world, but also around us. To build different forms of benefits, of course, is this movie, and you should actually not watch it one time, but watch it a million times and then also analyze it a lot. And of course, it holds some simple rights about those photo and also sound. To understand different forms of license is very important, but also different forms of contribution. Of course, any title might be extremely dangerous or wrong, but probably built more for politics or nonsense they are talking about. Usually, to build simple forum together with censors, it's not easy, especially because most of politics want to buy all license, but also to build a better price for different forms of community. It's commonly known that the licensor is actually making the price and not the buyers. To build conditions that are available to most of people, it's also not easy around the USA, especially if you have the license in picture standard, but also different forms of the picture together with the property or intellectual forms. Of course, if you are going to think about outlooks of the films or shapes of the people, you might be extremely confused about beauty, which is confused in itself. And of course, it's nothing serious. To build different forms of agreement together with the picture is also not easy, but also 100% to prevent crime or people that are stealing photos. And of course, that's usually impossible mission in United States of America. Uh, to build the different forms of installation of picture on your PC, it's not easy, but also to build simple forums license, especially if you have any forms of the simple picture for software. You must also build different forms of the theorems. My theorems are you can actually download the picture but not change it, and that's the only theorem on the beginning. But of course, there are millions of other theorems, but not too much. Because if you are building too much theorems, then you are just destroying the beauty of the picture itself. to offer different forms of the nature in USA together with the picture, it's also not easy, but also to build a company in EU separated, but also in United States of America, very separated from other continent. Also, of course, in UK separated from the EU and USA. To build different forms, it's not easy together with different banks because banks usually do not purchase license, and of course banks are very in my charity forum, so also providing for banks different electronics, it's not easy. Pseudonyms of course are very important if you are making book, and Simple Robert might be my pseudonym, which is secret in some part of world, but not everywhere. It's very important to know that there are different forms of Anne, Manfred, Frederick, Stephen, also the Percy, and millions of other names together with my book, but also some of those names are actually licensed. So do not mess with other pseudonyms or other artists, please. To understand people employed in my culture is not easy, but also to build different forms of ethics for work. The ethics for work are important when it comes to Robert because it's actually very a phenomenon how that come together with the work. To understand the different forms of the behavior it's also not easy, but also to build different forms for the MasterCard or different forms of the purchase for the Amazon if you are actually a professional in platforms. There are of course millions of bugs and spams in politics, but also in Amazon. So in 98% also a lot of distance from that. Musicians, of course, are more complex, and they are some sort of religious group of thinkers that are some sort of worshipping rock, Jesus, Satan, or music, and extreme fiction. So the musicians, when it comes to my products, are extreme fiction and should not be confused with my book because me imagine the musicians like some sort of extreme art, abstraction, something very unreal. And of course, musicians might be extreme too complex for this topic. Also, it's very important to understand simple rock bands if you want to build some simple form of melody. But of course, that is not my purpose today to represent here in this film. To understand different forms together with the movie, it's important if you are in movie industry. And of course, movie industry is sometimes extremely difficult. Do not forget that also in movie industry there are different forms of bugs, and those are usually some sort of trilogy of main 5 companies in world. Of course, sometimes it's very sad because you figure it out that those 5 companies are not 5, but actually thousands of companies that are inserting bugs in your story. To understand all those bugs, of course, you must know to understand bigger qualities of bigger companies that are insisting in their policies and bugs and whatever they are offering in their service. It is very important to build also simple calendars, but also some forums of the simple note together with ABC trends. The ABC trends in book sectors are extremely unsimple, and of course, for different forms of people, very unknown. There are, of course, a lot of sectors in world, and if you are thinking about more and more charity, you should also think about films because life might be a film.